Martin Niemöller was a cadet in the German army during the First World War. In 1920, he decided, though, to go into the family business. His father was a pastor. He decided to become a pastor as well. Like many Germans in the early 1930s, he welcomed Hitler and the Third Reich to power. He thought it was a great idea. That is until he had a meeting with Hitler, and it dawned on him all of a sudden that his phone line was being tapped by the Gestapo during that meeting. That is why today, Pastor Niemöller is best known for having spoken out about the dangers of what happens when we do not speak up. His words are displayed in Holocaust museums all throughout the world. First, he writes, "They came for the socialists, but I did not speak up because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." Sefer Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, teaches eight lachashot ve'et ledaber, that there are times for silence and times for speaking. This much we all know. The problem is that Kohelet doesn't tell us precisely when those times are supposed to be. And so we sit on the New York City subway, we see someone weird across from us acting strange. It might even be underneath a sign that says, if you see something, say something. But do we say something? No, there are a lot of weird people on the subway in New York City. We see a professor, a public figure, say something about Jews or defamatory toward Israel. Do we say something? No, generally we don't. History has shown us time and time again that not only in Niemöller's time, but that today most of us do not speak out as well. Why? In Pirkei Avot, Shimon, the son of Rabban Gamliel, acknowledges it's because speaking out always carries with it a kind of a risk. He says, Kol yamei gadalti ben hachachamim. My entire life was spent working with sages or growing among sages. Velo matzati leguf tov ela shtika. I found nothing better for the good of my own body than remaining silent. He's right. Speaking out carries a risk to us psychologically and physically. There are times in human history where those who spoke out lost their lives or put their lives at risk. Speaking out can also be emotionally taxing on us. Taking a stand for something you believe in is not the path of least resistance. I would imagine for Martin Niemöller, for example, speaking out for Jews during the Holocaust put him at odds with everybody else in his town around him pretty much. But Kohelet reminds us that there must be a moment when we all draw a line in the sand. Because while silence may be good for your body, it's terrible for your soul. Silence in a time when action must be warranted can be more deafening than if we make noise itself. Why are we called Jews and not called Reubens? Aside from the fact we aren't corned beef on rye with Russian dressing, why is it that we are called Yehudim, Jews? It's not only because we are descended from the kingdom of Judah, which was the last one to survive the exiling of the tribes. It's because in this week's parasha Vayigash, we take pride in the moment when Judah, our ancestor, spoke out. Reuben is the oldest of Jacob's 12 sons. By right, we should all be called Reubens, and the sandwich should be called Judah's. But the Torah teaches us that Reuven was a coward. When Joseph was thrown into the pit, Reuven does not speak out. He figures he's going to let his brothers have their fun. He'll come back later and go take Joseph out of the pit. Only when he returns, it is too late. They've already sold him into slavery. 8 lachashot ve'et ledaber. Reuven stays silent in a moment when he should have been speaking out. Yet as we read the words in this week's parasha, Vayigash Yehuda, we see Judah bravely approach the viceroy to plead his case. The viceroy, who he does not know is Yosef, gives him a terrible option. Benjamin could have remained in Egypt. The rest could go free and go home. But Judah has a conscience. It pulls at him. He doesn't miss the moment. He knows the news of Benjamin being behind in Egypt will kill his father. 8 lachashot ve'et ledaber. There is a time for speaking and a time for silence. And so he stands up. Vayigash, he approaches the moment. Unlike Reuven, he does not miss it. Over the past number of months, I've heard from any number of people here and people who are also not here about the way that Jews and our concerns have been ignored at Cobb County public schools. What started with a swastika at Pope High School has led to many conversations and layers upon layers of work. Thankfully, I want to say this Shabbat, we've gotten a lot done. There's a lot of empathy coming from the school district, where, to be blunt about it, and they would be the first to tell you, there was a heck of a lot of ignorance before. The only question is whether we, the Jewish community in this room and not in this room, want to now do right by ourselves. Whether we're going to stand up like Judah, like Queen Esther, take pride in our Judaism, or whether now that we have that empathy, we're going to shirk and to hide. I want to share with you a terrible story this morning. A few weeks ago, prior to Thanksgiving, I was invited to attend a cleanup at Pope High School. I was stunned because I found out about it not from the school, but from a well-meaning Christian colleague who told me, "Rabbi, I hope you can come. It's scheduled to begin on Saturday morning." 8 lechashot ve'et ledaber. I spoke up, and I received an email from the PTA president. "Don't worry," she said, "we've now created a special session for the Jewish students. It will be on Saturday night." And so here's an abridged version of what I wrote in response to her and to Principal Flugum and others at Pope High School. I said, "Thank you. I appreciate your invitation. I had heard about this from a Christian colleague, and it seemed to me that Jewish students who wanted to go to shul, quite contrary to what I understand is the purpose of the program, would be excluded if all of your events were held on Saturday morning, which you know is our holy day. And so I have to ask," I said, "was there any consideration given that this program was being conducted in response to anti-Semitic acts against Jews, that you might hold it on a Sunday morning to accommodate everyone participating without exclusion? Or," I said, "would a Sunday morning never have been considered because it would interfere with students going to church with their families?" "I imagine by now," I said, "you probably get the point of my question," although I'm not sure that they did. "What you are doing is wonderful, but we've clearly got a long way to educating ourselves to solve the problem that started all of this in the first place." And so I went to the school after Shabbat to meet the Jewish students for the program. I met the PTA president. She is wonderful, by the way. And then she introduced me to a Jewish teacher who was bat mitzvahed here, who organized the Jewish program. And so once I found out she had grown up here, I asked her point blank, did she think it was a problem that an event to support Jews and fight anti-Semitism began on Shabbat? What do you think she said? No, it wasn't a problem at all for her. Eit l'chashot v'eit l'daber. That teacher blew it for the rest of us. Friends, we have come to a Vayigash moment in our county. Together we can change the narrative about how Cobb County schools relate to their Jewish employees and students, but I cannot be the lone voice speaking out. There were once teachers who would not even bother to ask for holidays off because they felt like no one was listening. Now they are listening. So do it. Call me if there's a problem. There are students who feared missing going to school on Jewish holidays because they would lose a perfect attendance award or exam incentives. I'm happy to tell you those are now gone. Emails are now going to go out to principals before holidays, telling them not to penalize students teach new material, for teachers not to schedule a test the day after a fast day. So now you have to take off. Or you know what they're going to say to me? Rabbi, you wasted my time. You said this was important, but it wasn't. Eit l'chashot ve'eit l'daber. If we do not take pride in standing up for our Judaism, then why did I begin this fight in the first place? If teachers tell PTA presidents that Shabbat does not matter to Jewish kids, then it's not going to matter to Jewish kids. If teachers do not ask for holidays off, or worse, they just go to work on Yom Kippur to avoid everything, and principals do not think it matters, it's not going to matter. If students go to school on Jewish holidays, instead of telling their teachers they're going to take the day off, what did I do this for? And lastly, if students in classrooms see Christmas trees being put up by teachers, but they don't go up and say, I just wanted to tell you that I'm Jewish and it would mean a lot to me if I could put a menorah up too, because we're supposed to have inclusive schools, not exclusive ones, then we're going to become irrelevant. I understand there's a reason that we're all afraid to speak. As our tradition teaches, outspokenness is not always good for you. It can get you in a lot of trouble. But y'all know what the great speaker of good trouble, John Lewis, once said. There is and can be good trouble, and it may be bad for your body, but it's good for your soul. And when it comes to our schools, we all know the consequences now of being ignored. A school board where we want to complain is scheduled for Yom Kippur. Graduations scheduled for Shabbat on Friday night. It shouldn't take a Gestapo to get us to speak up, Vayigash. This here now is our moment in Cobb County to speak truth to power. We are not Reubens. We are Yehudim. We are Jews, the descendants of Judah who in this week's parashah answered that call. Let's all seize this moment, this Shabbat, together. Shabbat Shalom.